Hey Stashers, welcome to the CraftStash podcast. I'm your host Kim. This is episode 114, Rainbow for Show, or Rainbow F-O Show. Let's get crafty. Hey guys, welcome to Summer in the City. Welcome back to the show, and if you've never seen us before, welcome. You're in for a treat. This is the first of my summer series of episodes where I record out and about in the city as much as possible once the weather is nice. For those of you guys who are returning, you might guess that I'm a little bit annoyed by my tone. I just spent 45 minutes recording only to figure out that I didn't have my microphone turned on and that my camera cut out at about the 30-minute mark. So this episode is going to be short and sweet. We're going to have a little bit of what I'm crafting, a little bit of what I'm stashing, a visit with our friends in the group hug segment, and a tiny bit of periphery. So let's get started. What am I crafting? I've got some FOs to show you guys. So, in last week's episode, which was, or wasn't last week, it was a couple weeks ago, I was showing you guys all of my lovely rainbow yarns that I had aggregated over the past couple of months. I finished some projects, yay! The first project I wanted to show you guys is something that I had been working on at the time. I finished these absolutely lovely rainbow mitts. The main yarn is the Martian Rainbow colorway by Stacy of the Mustache Knits Fiber Company. She also is a co-host of the Mustache Knits podcast. These were some freeform gloves that I made, and the yardage was tiny because I ended up getting one of her mini skeins. You see, I've got the label here. She does this genius thing where she sells a half skein of yarn, because if you're gonna make socks, or if you're gonna make like shorty socks, you really don't need 400 yards for that skein. So this is half of her 463 yard skein, so it's about 230 yards, which is perfect for a short pair of socks, or in my case, perfect for 2 pairs of mitts, because I made 1 pair of mitts so far, and I have a whole other half of the skein left. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this half yet, we'll see. But these mitts turned out absolutely beautifully. I'll try one on for you guys. What I ended up doing was, because I wanted the rainbow to be the most prominent feature of the mitt, I actually didn't kind of do the top and bottom in rainbow. I bordered the top with black cotton yarn and the bottom with some really fun, fuzzy, oatmeal colored Zealana yarn. So there is going to be some interesting things happening because the cotton doesn't have as much stretch and give as the merino wool. And also the Zealana is a fuzzier, warmer wool that seems to have very little memory. So we'll see how these mitts wear over time, but I'm pretty happy with the colors. I'm gonna just touch my face in the camera because it's looking like the shadows might not be working with me in the video. Okay. So yay for finished objects. I knit these on my double pointed Cubics needles, which are square, and I think there's something like a size 2.25, and I love them so much. So yay for finished object number 1. Finished object number 2 is something that I had showed you guys a couple weeks ago as well. I had hand spun some lovely poonies by Turquoise Owl Fibers in her paintbrush colorway. The poonies were a mix of, we've got everything laid out here. I think it was a mix of merino, angora, BFL, and Falkland. So a kind of a fuzzier, more rustic blend. And I knit them up, I spun them up into singles, and then I spun those singles into this fun, simple kerchief. The idea was to make something that could kind of, sorry if this messes up the mic, to lay it around my neck and keep me warm in the summer months when I'm riding the subway, and then quickly stash it into a ball and not have to have a huge, heavy shawl with me. I think what I'm going to end up doing is ripping it out, because it ended up being too deep in the V part and not deep enough on the wings for it to really kind of cover my neck the way I want it to. So if I wear it like this, if I stand up a little bit, you can probably see. If I wear it like this, it ends up coming way too far down here and not covering up enough my neck over here, and it feels like a bib. So I'm actually going to rip this out and try for a pattern that is a little bit more of a crescent shape than a sweetheart shape. The pattern that I used to make this was a really awesome free pattern by Derya Davenport. Her website is Laylock for some strange reason. I don't know what that means. But if you go to her website or look for Laylock or Derya Davenport on Ravelry pattern search, you'll see a couple of her patterns. One of them is called something like 5 Basic Shawl Shapes, and it's kind of a schematic showing you the kind of structural bones behind how to make a half circle, a semicircular shawl, a sweetheart shawl, a triangular shawl, and a square shawl using no more than 6 rows. So it's pretty genius for if you want to just freeform a pattern or make up your own lace pattern. So I highly recommend it. Those are my FOs. I also wanted to show you the chuppah that I'm knitting for my sister, just because I realized that I mention it in passing a lot on the show without showing you guys what it looks like. So if you wanna, because I'm sensitive to time on this particular episode because I already recorded, I won't go into as much detail, but I will advise you, if you listen to Audio Craft Podcasts, do check out Arlen's podcast of the Lost Geek podcast, because we did an interview this morning where we chatted about, she's doing a challenge cal in her group where she and her group members are doing something that's new and different for them, and it's a little bit of a challenge in terms of their skills. So we chatted about me and my chuppah, because for me it was a challenge in so many different ways. It was a challenge to pick the fiber and the yarn and the needle size, and also to design some of the chuppah. I didn't end up following one straight pattern. I ended up heavily modifying this, and it involved a lot of math and geometry and kind of project planning, so we talked about that. But I figured that I would show you the shawl, or I would show you the chuppah, because it's moving along quite nicely. I had 7 balls of 400 yards each, and I'm on to the 3rd ball of yarn, so it's, I mean, it looks like a huge jellyfish. I was joking around with Arlen because what happened is that the way that I'm working it on circular needles, I actually can put the yarn in the middle of the project and it looks like the working yarn is coming from nowhere. So it's actually kind of cool, and it turns out to be fairly portable. I take this on the subway with me all the time, and it takes up very little room because it's kind of like I have a net in my lap that I knit on, which is kind of neat. So check out Arlen's podcast. I think it's probably going to be out in the next week or so, and you can hear us chatting about the, hold on, I gotta get this mosquito. They have been eating me up. I got bites all over the place. I'm getting quite good at smashing mosquitoes, so yes. So I think that's all that I'm crafting. Oh no, one more thing that I'm crafting. Guys, if you're in the Ravelry group and you are participating in our I Knit New York Cal, good news, I've worked with Kristen and Maria, Kristen of the Yarngasm podcast, Maria of the Subway Knits podcast, and we are giving you guys another month. We're really giving ourselves another month to finish the Cal projects, because Kristen and I are nowhere near finished. Maria is a straight A student, teacher that she is, and she's finished her project already, but we wanted to give people more time to, yes, so we are giving everyone an extra month to finish, so the deadline, instead of being June 30th, is now July 31st. But I did want to show you guys that I'm working on my shawl. It's just that the chuppah is taking precedence, right? I've got to finish that chuppah in time for my sister's wedding in August, so I finished the way this shawl, so, okay, back up. The shawl that the project that I'm working on for the Cal is the Keskitys shawl pattern. It's a free pattern, and the qualifier for the Cal is the fact that I'm using some yarn hand dyed in Brooklyn. Kristen of the Voolenvine podcast has a company called Yarngasm. No, her podcast is called Yarngasm. Her yarn company is called Voolenvine. So this is Voolenvine yarns, and that qualifies it for the Cal. And it's a really lovely pattern where you start by knitting this triangular kind of center panel, and you pick up along the right side and decrease for one wing of the shawl. Then you pick up along the other side and you decrease along that side for the other wing of the shawl. So I'm, a little over 2/3 of the way through, but like I said, there's no way I'm going to finish this in June because I really have to focus on the chuppah. So hopefully I will finish that chuppah by July 15th and then have another 2 weeks to finish that, which is totally doable. So that is all that I'm crafting. How about what I'm stashing? So So I'm stashing some really fun yarn. You guys know that I am part of the Yarntini Woolbar Choose Your Own Self-Striping Club. This is the last month of the club shipment, so this is my last shipment and I'm really excited about it. I decided for the last shipment to kind of go off script and choose colors that I don't necessarily use a lot. You'll recognize if you watch the show, I love purple, I love gray, so you know, those kind of ground it in the colors that I really am comfortable with. But then I also have a ton of orange and cream and pink and like a deep indigo violet purple in here. And it ended up turning out to be this really nice kind of fall color. I already have a shawl pattern in mind for it. I'll flash it up on the screen and put the name of the shawl at the bottom, but it's basically a shawl where you really capitalize on the fact that you have color blocked rows because you work in short sections and then you pick up along the edge to make this kind of checkerboard pattern. It's kind of awesome. So I think it'll work really, really nicely with the self-striping yarn. So again, after I finish the Chuppah, after I finish my Keskitys, I'm probably going to cast on a shawl using this yarn. It should be a lot of fun. So yeah, I think that's all that I'm stashing at the moment. So what else do we have? So I am so excited. We have 716 people in the group, which again, you know, from the very first episode that I did of this podcast, I was always kind of like, the group is fun, the group is nice. I'm not really kind of having a number in mind that I like to hit. So every extra person in the group is just like, yay, you guys like to hang out. That's so great. So thank you, all of you, for being a part of the group. Every time we hit another 100 members in the group, I want to do a giveaway and kind of talk to people and do kind of like an interaction with you guys. So what ends up happening is that every time we have 100 members in the group, I give a prize away. Now that we've reached 700, what I did was I broke the group into 2 different groups. Group members number 600 and below, that would be a prize pool, and then group members number 601 and above would be another group prize pool. So our 2 winners got to choose some lovely patterns. Our 2 winners are Melissa Knits. Oh god, they're all over the place. The mosquitoes are on the camera. Can you... I'm sorry. I'm just like... I'm in Mosquito Grove here. Alright, I actually might pick up and move because I don't want to look like a crazy person. Because I already look like a crazy person because I'm in the park talking to a camera, and I also don't want to be a crazy person like snapping things everywhere. So give me a sec. Hey Stasher, so we're... Hey Stasher, so we're back inside and it's about 3 days later. I don't know if you guys noticed while I was recording, I didn't see it until I did a quick playback, but there were a ton of mosquitoes attacking me in the park when I tried to record, and there was actually one on my face, and you guys didn't say anything. And you want to know what's hilarious? That Sunday night, as I was kind of just hanging out at home, Greg was like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Why?" And he's like, "You hit your head." And I said, "No, I didn't hit my head." And as he's going to hit, I hit my head, I'm like touching my forehead and I start scratching it. It was a mosquito bite that grew to the size of like a big lump on my head, maybe the size of a silver dollar. So thanks for nothing, guys. You guys let me get ate up by mosquitoes. So all the swelling has gone down. It's actually Wednesday after work, and I'm hanging out with a friend of mine. I guess she should come and say hello to you guys, right? A lot of you guys know that we said goodbye to Tiger Lily, our cat, back in March, and we missed her so much, and we took a couple of months off, but it just didn't seem right to not have a furry friend waiting for us when we got home. So we went ahead and adopted a cat, and her name is Lavender. Lavender! Lava, do you want to say hi? And Lava is a sweet girl. Isn't she a sweet baby? She is very photogenic, and she's a sweetie. She's had kittens already. She's about 2.5 years old. We got her from a rescue. And she's a sweet girl, and she likes to be picked up, which is something that Tiger never let us do. But Lavender also has claws. So we're learning our way around life with cats with claws again. We didn't get Tiger declawed by choice. She came to us that way, and it was a very happy blessing. But Lavender likes claws, and she uses hers, and we've got scratching pads, so we'll see how that goes. But enough of the cat digression. Lava. Oh, Lava, don't bite my leg. She's such a sweet and loving girl. She's really a sweetheart, but she's loud as hell at night. Yes, so I was just talking to you guys about some interviews that I had been wanting to do with some group members. So as soon as I'm able to pull them up on my phone or on my iPad, I will get to it, okay? So because I haven't done the group hug segments in so long, I'm gonna give you a twofer. If you are curious, I have a static set of questions that I ask everyone, and people just kind of answer 3 or 4 of the questions. So let's just dive right in. The first group hug person that I want to chat with you guys about is VelvetOwl. Her name is Rachel. She lives in Australia, and she's been a crafter for a long time. So let's go ahead and start asking. And I'm always kind of awkward with these guys in terms of me doing the first person, second person, third person omniscient. So I think what I'm going to do is just read the answers outright and see how that goes. So one of the first things that I do is choose 2 patterns, or 2 projects rather, to chat about. And the 2 that I chose for Rachel were a lovely, lovely golden colored cardigan. And she happened to mention that it was a test knit. So the project was just called Test Knit. She says, for my project Test Knit, this was a pattern I was testing for a designer on Ravelry. It was a fun and quite fast knit. The lace was super easy. It was a very satisfying knit, but I can't talk about it much as it's not a pattern that has been released yet. But I'd highly recommend it when it's released. So guess what, guys? The pattern has been released. It's called the Kikusui. Ravelry designers are the most inventive. Kikusui? Kikusui, and it's a really lovely 3/4 length sleeve open cardigan that has a folded over edge with some lovely lace detailing on the front panel, and it looks like a little bit of texture as well. And I think probably the reason that it caught my eye is that it looks like the yarn that Rachel used for her test knit was some sort of Madeline-tage, so good taste. Oh, Lav, what are you doing? It's so tempting with a new kitty to just stop and take pictures of everything she does, but I'm going to keep talking to you guys. The other pattern of Rachel's that I chose to kind of ask her about was this lovely, lovely crocheted shawl. And the reason I chose it was because I'm trying to rediscover crochet a little bit, and I think she did a really great job with the shawl. So she says, about my crochet shawl, I just made this pattern up just by crocheting in a triangle shape until it was big enough to make into a shawl. I made it because I wanted to crochet something to keep my hand in the hook. Okay, so let me read that again. I made it because I wanted to crochet something to keep my hand in with the hook, as I mostly knit nowadays. I learned to crochet as young as I learned to knit, so I made it for sentimental reasons, I guess. I totally agree. I actually learned to crochet first, and I don't do it very often, and I'm trying to, like I said, rediscover my love of crochet. Rachel then says, I learned to knit and crochet when I was very small, about 5 years old. I was always attracted to crafting and making things, and knitting and crocheting was what my mother and grandmother knew how to do, so they taught me. She says, I didn't craft for a long time. Right through my teens and early 20s, I was more into sewing for myself and did patchwork and quilting. I found knitting again when going through a stressful time in my life, and the breakdown of my marriage was it. Knitting became my solace and my therapy to get me through tough times. I found it was a complete distraction and a complete joy to immerse myself into a knitting pattern, and the click of the needles, the softness of the yarn was a balm to my soul. Not to mention, I made things that were lovely and unique to wear. I think I gravitated towards knitting as it required no setup, no equipment other than yarn and needles. If I had 10 minutes or all day to knit, it was always there and ready to go. Plus, I'm just in love with yarn. Totally, totally agree. I think all of us have had difficulties, you know, things that were big questions on our minds, and knitting is definitely a therapeutic thing. So thank you so much for sharing that kind of painful experience with us, Rachel, but I think we're all brothers and sisters in the crafty spirit. So definitely that resonates with a lot of us, I'm sure. And then I asked her some kind of fun questions in terms of who her favorite yarn company is, and she says it has to be Madeline-tage. She loves her colors, even though Rowan British Sheep Breed's DK yarn is a close favorite. She says, it smells so sheepy and is delicious to knit with. That's all you girly girls. Shapey, smelly yarn is not my thing, but the more the merrier, I guess. I also asked her who her favorite designers are. She says, I really like to support the indie designers on Ravelry. So again, she's also just test knitting for someone, which definitely shows how much she enjoys that. She says, my favorite designers on Ravelry are Laura Alar, one of my favorites too, Bonnie Mae Burns, Anna Maria Otvos, and a new designer named Monier. Cool. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, Rachel. Melissa Knits is also a member of our Ravelry group, and I believe she's also on Instagram because I do have her on my feed. And I wanted to spend some time chatting with her too because she had some really fun projects to share. So the first project of hers that I chose was a stuffy, and I'm not usually a stuffy, plushy toy person in terms of crafty things, but I hope you guys agree this warthog was really, really cute, so I asked her about it. This project is Frederick the Wild Hog. I wanted to make this project because my brother is obsessed with hunting and loves to hunt wild dogs. The best thing about the pattern was how cute the little hog turned out. I liked it so much that I made 2 and kept 1. I wouldn't have changed anything about the pattern. I made the hog for my brother for his birthday, sort of a joke. I told him, look how cute this is. How could you hunt him? I think he put him in his office at work. LOL. I think that's a really subversive and fun way to maybe make someone think about their choices for hunting and for maybe eating meat. I eat meat all the time, but I'm just saying I think it's a creative and fun way to engage people that way. Her other project that I chose was a lovely, lovely shawl, and I think some of you guys have heard of it. It's called the Multnomah. She says, I don't even really remember why I made it. Probably saw it on a podcast, or I think it was a popular pattern at the time. I wouldn't have changed anything about the pattern, but I probably would have made it bigger if I had more yarn. So yeah, I think it's kind of interesting, the trends, and I'm podcasting as the sun goes down, so you guys will see my lighting change, so thank you for bearing with me as I craft in the middle of the week, or podcast in the middle of the week. But you know, going back to Melissa's comment, it's kind of funny to watch the trends in the podcasts that you see. Right, everyone's making socks at once, and then everyone turns to making those modular blankets at once, and then everyone's jumping on the next big shawl pattern. So I think it's kind of interesting. I might even start a thread in the Ravelry group to track the next big thing on podcasts, because I think it's really, really interesting when everyone kind of goes in for a bandwagon of self-striping, or if everyone's trying to do gradient spinning all at the same time. I think it's kind of neat. It's kind of like informal spin-alongs and knit-alongs and crochet-alongs when we're kind of doing these crafty, podcasty trends. I also asked Melissa about, you know, if she had her way with the world, what would her dream craft setup be? And she says, my dream craft setup is to have a craft room, and I finally got one last year. My husband put in a wood laminate floor for me, and I painted it my favorite color, which is green. He helped me figure out a cabinet for my yarn so it could be covered and still be seen. Our solution was a gun cabinet. He put 2 shelves inside of it for me, and it worked out perfectly. She says, I craft a lot in my living room though. My husband and I like baseball and watching movies, so I usually sit and craft there a lot with him. Thank you so much, Melissa, for spending time with us, and Rachel as well. I hope you guys enjoy the group segments or the group hug segments. You know, when I first started this podcast, I had maybe like 7 or 8 segments, and now I really just stick to the crafting, stashing, and periphery. But every once in a while, it's nice to dip my toes back into, you know, not just crafting and stashing. So thank you, Melissa and Rachel, for sitting and chatting with us. How about we do a little bit of periphery? So the sun has gone down on us, but that's okay because we've got lighting, and it's the year 2014. We'll make it work. For periphery, I wanted to do a couple of things. I wanted to say thank you to a couple people, catch up on some group Ravelry group cleanup, and also talk about a couple things that have been making me happy. So first of all, thank you so much to Jennifer of the Downseller podcast. She's also known as Boston Jen. She designed a new pattern, and she very generously gave me a copy of that pattern. It's the Tan House Brook shawl. It's a really lovely triangular shawl that has some lace detailing and some textured stitches at the edges. Really, really fun. Looks like a very potato chip kind of knitting project. So please do go ahead and either check her out either on Instagram or on Ravelry. It's Boston Jen. She also has a Ravelry group for her podcast, which is Downseller Studios. So thank you so much, Jen. I also wanted to catch up on some group maintenance. You know that every month in the Ravelry group, I've been wishing those of you guys who have a birthday that month, happy birthday. And as part of that thread in the group, there's a prize giveaway of a zodiac sign stitch marker. Hey, Lava. And I kind of fell behind with May. I definitely did pick a winner, but I wanted to show you guys an example of the stitch markers. The stitch markers are very generously donated by Erin, who is also known as Serafina Biss on Ravelry and Instagram. Her company is called Bling Your String. She does the lovely bags and stitch markers. And she has all of these really fun things, and I turned off the auto zoom, so hopefully you guys can see these. This is Taurus for May, so there's a little bull stitch marker with matching kind of segment stitch markers, and it's got like the zodiac sign and the dates that the zodiac sign spans, which is a very, very fun and sweet thing. So thank you, Erin, for donating those to the group. And I wanted to let you guys know who the May birthday girl is, happens to be a girl this month. So basically that thread is just, you know, me shouting out everyone saying, happy birthday, how are you celebrating, let us know, and everybody writes back, and those of you guys who do write back are eligible for this stitch marker prize. So the winner this month is Phoenix Fire. I remember meeting her at SSK a couple of times. So yay, congrats to you. And she shared her birthday celebration by saying, I'm celebrating at the Into the Wool retreat this year with some of my favorite fibery peeps. It's going to be a good one. So I agree. I hope you had a great time, Phoenix Fire. Please get in touch with either me or Erin, who is also again known as Serafina Biss on Ravelry, for your May stitch marker. A couple more things. Don't forget the I Knit NYC Cal is going. I believe I talked about it earlier, but it was 2 days ago that I recorded, so I don't remember if I told you the details. There's really awesome prizes in store for you guys if you're playing along, and we've extended the deadline by a month. The new deadline is July 31st. So if you haven't started, plenty of time for you to crack out something really fast. It just has to be something that you use a yarn from a New York-based indie designer. Oh gosh, a New York-based indie dyer, a New York designer, or something that just reminds you of New York. So good luck on that. Last but not least, I realize that I haven't been talking about myself as much in the podcast as I used to, or as some other podcasters, and not that I want the show to be like 45 minutes of me talking and like 10 minutes of me showing knitting, because I don't watch that kind of show and I don't expect you guys to. But I think it's nice to kind of check in every once in a while. So I just wanted to talk about 2 things that are making me really happy, or 3 things that are really making me happy lately. And they're all media related. So first things up, Orange is the New Black, back on Netflix. I was really excited about the show. I actually love the show, not because of the subject matter, but because of the way it treats women. It really is nice to see, and this is going to sound totally gross, but I inside am a 7-year-old to 15-year-old boy. I don't think that women are always pretty and prissy and princessy and glamorous and dainty and frilly. So it's really nice to see women portrayed in the media a little bit more realer. And I love Orange is the New Black for how graphic it is, because I gotta tell you, this first episode of the 2nd season, my favorite scene was, I forget the character's name already, but one of the women who is Piper's new roommate / inmate was like taking a dump on the toilet and giving Piper directions and talking about training a cockroach to run errands, which is such a ridiculous statement, but it's like, yay, there's women pooping on screen. And I know that is not necessarily the epitome of good theater or cinema or television or drama, but it made me smile, and it was like, you know, it's good to see women in all of our guises as mothers and as sex objects and as princesses and as inmates who take dumps in front of other inmates, because that's the real world. Hopefully a real world that I will never have to notice firsthand, but I kind of enjoy that thing. So I'm really glad that that show is back. Also, I've fallen down the rabbit hole. I have started watching Game of Thrones, and at this point, it's kind of like I just want to be caught up so I could just be caught up and get over it already. I don't necessarily love the show. I think it's entertaining, but I feel like as I get older, it's harder and harder for me to watch shows where women, again, as a theme, are kind of just like objects. You know, I know that there are a lot of strong women characters in the show, but I don't know. I just, anything that, like, every episode there's tits and every episode there's mention of rape, it's just like, come on guys, can we do a little bit better of a job here in terms of making women's worldview a little bit more even-handed? I know, I'm asking a lot. Series written by a guy, fairly medieval. I'm choking right now, sorry. Sorry, I had a little bit of a choking fit there. I got so choked up talking about the unfair portrayal of women in Game of Thrones, but you know, it is what it is. I'm watching it. It's keeping me entertained as I knit on the chuppah, so that's that, I guess. The last thing I wanted to chat about is, actually I might show it to you. Give me one more second. This episode is all over the place. So if you live in NYC or the 5 boroughs, or are tuned into the craft community here, you know about a place called the Brooklyn Craft Company. And I got to take a class there for the first time a couple of weeks ago, or about a week ago, and it was the Make Your Own Terrarium class, which was a lot of fun. This is the terrarium that I ended up making. It's got a huge golden cat in it. Some authentic moss down from North Carolina way, and fun little people hiding out if you can kind of sort of barely see them. But as I was taking this class, I met this really lovely woman, and we rode the subway home together, but before I could like get her contact information, it was her stop, so she had to go. But in our conversation, I mentioned to her that I got this fancy new camera, I'm trying to learn to use it better, and she told me that she was a graphic designer and also learning photography a little bit more, and she turned me onto this website called Creative Live, and some of you have probably already heard of it. It's kind of in the same spirit of Craftsy or Creative Bug, where you take classes online and you kind of purchase the class and you have access to it for a long period of time. But these classes are very, very technical on Creative Live, and they're mostly for photography, for graphic design, for fashion photography, and there are a couple of DIY hobby things, there are a couple of like foodie things, but it's really about how to take amazing pictures with your DSLR, how to use a DSLR film camera for movies, how to do sound editing, how to learn Acrobat and InDesign and those kinds of things. So I've been taking a couple of the photo classes on them. I'll flash the name of the the one particular photography class that I've been taking. It's a really great resource. The cool thing is that if you happen to catch a class while it's quote-unquote live, while it's being taught, it's totally free. You just obviously have to be there and be able to sit and watch it. It's only when you want to take a class that has already been broadcast that you have to pay for it. So if you're a stay-at-home person, if you're a work-from-home person, it's probably a really good idea for you to check it out to see what classes are up, because week by week you can get all these amazing classes for free and actually chat with the people teaching the classes real time if you're doing it real time. So I thought I would share that with you guys. So thank you guys for spending another half hour to 45 minutes with me. I know I've been posting fairly sporadically lately, but you know the chuppah's kind of keeping me busy, as is the work. And the new kitten, oh sweetness, I have to show you guys. She's such a sweetie. Lava. Lava. She's fuzzy because she's out of focus, but it's, you know, it's summer, trying to stay upbeat and stay working on the chuppah. So thank you guys for letting me post and make videos more sporadically. In the meantime, please check out the Ravelry group. Please check me out on Instagram. Hop on over, say hello, show us what you're working with. And in the meantime, if you can't keep it crafty, what the hell am I talking about? In the meantime, if you can't craft it, stash it. Cheers!